I'm Jennifer Fish. I'm chair of the Women's Studies Department here at ODU, and I'm really delighted to be a part of this series. We began planning for this series just a few weeks before the coronavirus hit in March. And what we're finding is that with virtual access, we're able to reach communities more widely, which is always a part of our mission as educators here at ODU. So we hope that you will join for the other two events. Please feel free to share this widely. Today, we have an incredible lineup of some of the most amazing photographers in the USA. We're so happy that you're here. I want to thank the 6 sponsors who made today possible at ODU. Within the College of Letters, I'm so thankful to the Friends of Women's Studies, the Institute for Jewish Studies and Interfaith Understanding, the Institute for Ethics and Public Affairs, the Institute of the Humanities, and the Department of Sociology and Criminal Justice. Today's event would not be made possible without our deep partnership with the Women's Center at ODU as well. With our higher education transition to online learning, we have so many geniuses behind the scenes who are making all of our outreach possible. I really want to thank the Office of Community Engagement here at ODU, particularly Christina Lipuma and Emily Poulin, who made all of today's virtual events possible. Thank you so much. Sarah and Brian, as co-producers, thank you for being with us today from New York to Alaska. And I'd like to invite you to turn your cameras on and tell us about how you created this project, about your vision, and what you hope it will realize. Welcome, Sarah and Brian.
Hello. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to ODU and to Jennifer for supporting the 400 Years Project. Brian and I really, really appreciate it. And I also want to thank everybody for tuning in today for this event. So the 400 Years Project originated, it had a few steps. Many, many months ago, I saw a tiny blurb in the paper that talked about how this November marks 400 years since the arrival of the Mayflower in the US. And this is a voyage that forever changed the course of history for every Native American. And so I started thinking about what we can do to center the Native voice in this history as the US and England both planned celebrations of this event. So Brian and I got together, we put our heads together, and we created the 400 Years Project, which uses contemporary visual stories as well as archival photos made by Native American photographers from the mid-1800s to the present, to provide a narrative that both recognizes the devastating effects of colonization and also one of Native empowerment. So the full project, which includes 8 photo essays and the Library of Native American Photographers, launches in November. Brian, do you have anything to add?
No, that's great, Sarah, thanks. Yeah, no, I'm really excited about the whole project and with everybody that's involved. Thanks to ODU for having us and Jennifer for having us. Yeah, thanks, I'm super stoked. And it's been really fun putting this all together with you, Sarah, and your vision on it has been amazing. And yeah, it just feels like a dream team of storytellers coming together and editors coming together to share contemporary Native stories, and to be a part of it.
And it was just a story that was it felt so important at the time, because now during this time where, colonization has really changed the landscape and, changed what our traditional foods look like. Here is some walrus and whale and Cool Whip, where people are holding onto their culture, trying to decide what parts of their culture to accept, are going on Facebook to post about their sneakers. Now there's this new way for people to reach in and criticize these young people for who they are and for their cultural beliefs. So it felt super just of the time to want to cover that. This is at like 2:30 a.m. So the light in Alaska is kind of its own character. So in a lot of the images, I'm kind of just looking for these quiet moments, or I guess I'll stay here for a minute, these quiet moments that kind of also show how far out we are. Those far-reaching comments led Chris to drop out of school for the year, caused him all kinds of depression, and the community within Alaska had to raise up and really bolster his spirits and praise him for being a hunter to help him get through it. This next story kind of leads into a different kind of education that's happening in the state, boarding schools. A lot of us have seen the work of Daniela Zalkman and others who have looked at the history of Indigenous boarding schools that were mandated and abusive. And in Alaska, boarding schools are still really commonplace due in large part to geography. So these photos are from one of the boarding schools that is located down in Southeast Alaska called Mount Edgecombe, which has a student body. Oops, I don't know how those got flipped. I'm sorry. We'll come back to this one. But Mount Edgecombe has a population of about 400 students, which is larger than most villages. So what they are able to offer students is a much more expansive curriculum. And some of the students there have told me that they kind of found their culture when they came to Mount Edgecombe because they were connecting with people based on culture. Sometimes there'd be like the Kotzebue room, there'd be, you know, the Gamble kids. And there's still these
Well, friends, I'm sorry about that, but in order to move our program along, since we have such rich content with us, Sarah, Lean, I wonder, could you offer a few comments on your work with Ash and what you've seen in terms of building her images into a story?
Yes, sure, I'd be happy to. Would you like me to share the PDF of the project? Just then we can look at it, and then when she gets back, she can just jump in. Why don't I try that?
Sure, wonderful.
Okay, let's see here. Where is it? Desktop, share. I'm gonna get my whole desktop for a minute.
You're doing great though. Sarah and I were talking about it.
Okay.
Oh, back here.
If she comes back, we can. So anyway, this is I'll just show you sort of the thumbnails like of the work. So, and this was something I was would talk about with Ash when we just spoke together, but I'll give you sort of a preview. So what I found really interesting about Ash's project is how it is a group of several stories. And she started to tell you some of them. She's telling you the one about the young whaler, and she started to tell you the story about the boarding school. And there are other stories within this. And what we did was took this body of work, which is several distinct stories, and moved them into an essay about the youth, about to become a person. And the way Ash and I, mostly how we communicated with time zones and her extremely busy schedule was, you know, she sent me her ideas and her work, and then I would put together like a keynote and then turn it into a PDF and send her various edits, and then she would send me her edit, and we would go back and forth that way. I think what was for me, I think the biggest challenge was really understanding this project, her goals, what she's trying to say with it, what she's trying to do, and how best to take these separate stories and make them into one larger essay. So this is just a look at the like 26 sort of pages, as it were, or when it gets on the website, it'd be more of a vertical scroll. So you can see sort of, this was just a little, her title, and then she was showing you this work about Chase, the young whaler. I think the other thing for me as an editor is to be looking for images that might go together as what I would call pairings, or creating groups of images so that the effect, it's called something we often call the third effect. So you have the adults playing basketball and you have the young kids playing basketball, and just finding those relationships to create pairings so that when you're scrolling through the website, you are seeing, getting a little bit more variety. So it's not just one picture after the other. So these are just some of the images that she already showed you, and how they were would appear in the edit that we were doing for the website. These are the caption information that she had and that we submitted with the images. And now we're going a little more in advance. This is the school in Edgecombe, the boarding school. And it's, some of these pictures are just, so many, I love them. And I love seeing just this kind of classic lunchroom scene. Just so typical, kids on their cell phones, which I think speaks a lot to what Ash was talking about, seeing Indigenous peoples as just as modern people. They're not in feathers, they're not just in parkas, but they're on their cell phones and they're getting their hair cut and they're getting ready for the prom, just like kids anywhere. I don't know how far, Jennifer, maybe you can let me know, to go through her work. How far should I just keep going? And, or I hate to steal, I don't want to steal Ash's thunder or opportunity to talk about this. Oh, she's back. Okay, good. I'll stop now. I was just filling in for you.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I'm like,
No.
it just dropped. It was
Okay.
Alaska.
I was just kind of going through the PDF and how we made some pairings and stuff like that. And I got as far as the boarding school. So right where you left off.
Awesome. Okay. So I'll kind of just like speed through this real quick. Because I know we're going to run short on time. So let's see if I can get this. Okay. So this was a photo that just really spoke to Brian. So I'll talk about this for a second. And there was this longstanding history of boys having their hair cut or having to have their hair cut in the mandatory boarding schools. So this one was one that felt important to make because it means something different now. But at the same time, there's still this, again, pervasive Westernness to Alaska now that is unavoidable. And so there's, and that's, again, not to say that all cultural hybridity is bad, but it was something that happened and it's impossible to ignore in these images, I feel like specifically, when we look at what education looks like. And the relationship between the schools and the villages is complex and is often spoke about when you're traveling through. Like people will say our children have to check their culture at the door when they walk through the schools. This is in Shishmaref. So a bunch of work ended up being done in places dealing with climate change. We just kind of skipped ahead into images about revitalizing culture. So the face tattoos that are given by women and for women, that's been happening throughout the state and throughout the circumpolar north. So this is one young woman that had gotten them. Subsistence life paired with Westernness is just how things are now. Like people hunt on snow machines. They use, fuel to get out to the animals. And there's this kind of just really unique look, I think, to a lot of the Arctic. This is in a whale cabin. His name is Sakun. They were using the ptarmigan feathers to brush out the cabin, but they ate the ptarmigans. They were waiting for the wind to change to go whaling here. I like that Sarah kept images like this into the edit too. She was like, I would get really locked into these ideas of point photos, and Sarah said, she was like, we can't lose these poetic images, which this speaks to the four-wheelers and the way people are getting around in these communities now. Oh, and that's not loading very well, is it? So I'm just going through as quickly as possible at this point, just to kind of show a little bit of what the work looks like and how different it looks from region to region, and kind of just show a little bit of the feeling I was hoping people would come away with, or the thoughts they might have. These girls are in New Tuck, which is one village that is absolutely in the process of transition. They're currently moving. Most of them have already moved over to Metkavik, the alternate location. So they're one of the first villages to actually make a full successful move, or be in the process of making a full successful move away from coastal erosion. So some of the photos like this were kind of just things that happened. The girls had been practicing NYO, which are the Native Youth Olympics. So they do something called the knuckle hop, where they hop on their knuckles. It's like a really dramatic plank, and they'll do it all across the floor. It's really intense. And so they would go and put their hands in the ice in the freezer to cool them off afterwards. And some images like this were just to show like what it looks like in the place and what it would look like to be in those spaces. And we ended it here, and I'm happy Sarah ended it here because I think this is a really joyful image. And this is an older one. It's from like 2015. But that feeling of joyfully embodying culture, but also having these tennis shoes, but running away from the water, is just, it's symbolic of a lot of things to me. So, okay. I think that's it.
Ash, thank you so much for coming in and out. And Elizabeth, thank you for showing us the behind the scenes, how important it is to select the various dimensions of such different photos. Could I ask you both to have a closing thought, and then we'll move on to our next editor photographer pair? Anything else you'd like to say about the project? I know it's all in progress. We're so grateful to see those, Ash.
I think I'd just like to ask Ash a question. Is this a project that you think that you'll be working on like for a long, long time? Like something that you're going to keep building on? To me, it seems like the perfect kind of project to keep going. You have such a good foundation already.
I think so, and I think in different kinds of ways. Brian is part of this project that I'm working on right now that's been funded by the museum here to actually start really bringing up Indigenous photographers and people of color within the state. So I think that I will continue to make work that pertains to me or that I feel like I'm uniquely qualified for, but I also really want Indigenous people, and especially young Indigenous people, to be doing the work. So I think it will be, I haven't decided what my role is. Like, I think this for me was an important project, and I constantly questioned, like, am I the person to tell this? And so I think moving forward, it will be this, I'm sure there are many stories I will continue to kind of like isolate as, oh, this goes into this body of work. And also following people, like seeing where some of the youths are in 20 years, I think is important to me.
Yeah.
And just encouraging these communities to tell their own stories. So
I think this story in particular has so many opportunities to engage them to tell their own stories, the youth, and your guidance and your support, could be super valuable. And I think the results would be amazing to see. Love to see that myself.
Thank you both so much. And to our audience, stay tuned. You will be able to see these images and collections as they emerge, as the 400 Years Project carries on in the world after its opening here at ODU. So Ash, thank you so much. And Sarah, we appreciate you being the models of the photographer editor duo. Now I'd like to turn to Madison Long. Madison is with us from North Carolina, and she is a photographer who is deeply connected to nature. And you see a great deal of nature photography and the history of painting in her images. And she's just beginning a project. She's joined the 400 Years collection to move that project forward. She has put together a collection of images today that look at Native American artists. And after we see Madison's presentation, we'll have her in dialogue with Elizabeth Christ. So Madison, if you could join us with your camera and mic from North Carolina and screen share your presentation. Tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing.
Can everybody see me? Can you see me right now? Okay. So my name is Madison. I am 23 and this is my actual first editorial. So I'm super stoked about it. I have the best editor, Elizabeth Christ. I don't know if you can hear her right now. But yeah, I know we're running short on time, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the screen sharing. Okay, so Elizabeth, I did go ahead and add in a few images if that's okay, so everybody can see. The title of my project is The Contemporary Artisans Who Are Molding What It Means to Be Cherokee. And I think this is really important to showcase right now because of COVID and everything with people being at home. And whenever you're at home, I really notice that everybody's getting well rooted and just getting back, like I said, getting back to your roots. And so many people have been practicing art. Sorry, I'm just really nervous, guys. But yes, let me just go ahead and get started and let the pictures tell the story. So first I'm showcasing a artist named Evan Mathis, and he is a poker toe maker amongst other things. And like I said, all these artists I'm featuring right now, they aren't just practicing what they're doing in the verse and everything. They're just so intertwined with our culture, and that's just something I think that is so important right now. But yeah, let's get started. So this is Evan Mathis, and he is showcasing his poker toe making. And I'll just sort of go through here. Like I said, Elizabeth, can you hear me right now? I don't know if we're gonna talk right now, Amy. But yeah, I'm just gonna go through. These are and what Elizabeth has been such a help with me as to like picking and telling a story throughout just the short amount of images that we have. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through these. And now, well, this is Evan Mathis right here. And I'm gonna go on, and the next artist I'm featuring is Jen Bird. She is a local beater. These guys are all from the Eastern Meta Cherokee Indians, and that's where I'm from as well. And I'm so glad to be a part of this project because I'm a visionary coming within the community. And I know every one of these people personally. So I think it's really cool that I can get that intimate connection going and being inside of their homes, you know, and experiencing what they see, what they feel, and just joking with them. They're all great people. So you can really see that throughout their artwork as well. This is Jen Bird, like I said. I'm gonna keep going on. And Jen Bird is really known for her fast beadworking. So she was granted the job of beating the new Miss Cherokee crown, and that's going to be in October of 2021. So if you can see that it's a large crown that she's going to have to be beating, so it takes time. So she's already starting now, and it's going to take I'm sure it won't take her a year because she's just so phenomenal at what she does. But yeah, I'm going to keep going. And this is one of her latest works she just finished. So I thought it'd be really cool to get a still life of that. And this is just in her home, and this is her backyard. So she wakes up and sees the mountains and stuff, and it's just so inspirational. Like Jennifer Fish said, I'm all about nature, and just, it's not really that I'm into it. Pretty much everybody in my community is, because we live in the mountains. So it's really cool. And here's just, I try to get wide shots, and working with Elizabeth, she really taught me how angle matters, how you're shooting the object and the type of photos you really need to add in to create a visual story. So I'm going to keep going. And now we're moving on to the artist I photographed. His name is John Henry Gloin. He is a tattoo artist, carver, painter, but I specifically wanted to narrow in on his painting because that's just something that stands out to me personally as a photographer. So that's just what we decided to capture. And here is a portrait, and it's cool that he's wearing a mask. That's actually a hornet's mask. So that's just they call it a booger mask within our community. And it's just cool because knowing him as a person, he's not, I wouldn't want to say dark, but dark in a way. I'm sorry. But yeah. And here's one of his paintings he did. And it was just such a really cool journey going in these people's homes and really just getting into the environment, talking with them and seeing how natural and calm they were in their setting. Like everything is just so natural to them. But yeah, I'm gonna keep going through. And this is actually one of his latest pieces that he just finished up, and it's in lots of art shows. I'm just so proud of this guy. I've known each of these people pretty much my whole life. So I think it's just such an honor to be able to put them out and let the whole world see these guys and just in their total natural environment. Okay. And here's him with another mask. And the next artist featured is Michelle Long. I really wanted to add her because she's changing what mask making is. She uses polymer clay to create these really cool masks, and she adds horsehair onto them. And masks pretty much are really vital within our community. Each one means something else. And the fact that she's organizing it and changing up how we can put these in our houses as decorative pieces is just really cool. This is her. I'm gonna keep moving on. And this is the wood carver monk walking stick. And this is typically where he works, is right by the fire. And let's see, I'm gonna keep going. He has a awesome family. Here's just some more of his work. And he actually is from a place called the Wolftown Community, and he plays a game called the Little Brother of War, otherwise known as stickball. And he makes the sticks. And the reason I want to capture this picture is because he has it hung up high. And with stickball sticks, pretty much only he is allowed to touch that stick because it's just so sacred. So I thought it was really cool to capture that up high and just show like how much it means to him as well as like to me as well, because I'm a part of this culture, and it's just such an honor I'm nervous, but I really want to get these photos out so everyone can see like living Cherokee. I'm gonna keep going. That's him with his family. And the next artist is Nola Tisa-Teskey. She is a finger weaver. And a long time ago, we would use animal fur, but now we've modernized it and we use wool and yarn. And you can still put in beads, pretty much anything you want into these woven belts. But the thing is you've got to learn the technique and the time. And even these designs that are on the wool is something that's been passed down through hundreds of years. Okay, I'm going to keep going. And this is just the finished product and pretty much how it looks whenever you finish up. And it's so frustrating. I personally have tried a finger weave, and it's just so frustrating having thousands of strands of wool and having to keep up with it. So I thought this image was really cool because you can see how much wool and yarn is actually into this. And the last artist was Miss Sarah Thompson, and she is a potter. This is river clay she's using, and we shot this at the Museum of the Cherokee Indian. That's actually where she works. And she's just there every day showing people who are interested in the Cherokee culture how she does pottery and how it's the same techniques that's been passed down. I'm gonna keep going.
Madison, can we ask you to summarize in just a couple more minutes?
Yes.
Thank you so
Actually, this was the last image, so Elizabeth can come on in if she wants. I'm not sure if she's there.
Hi.
Hi,
You
Liz.
can stop sharing. Oh, no, actually, you can leave it on the screen. But
Okay.
so I have to just say that I was just so impressed with how Madison was so rooted in her community and how she had such a clear vision of who she wanted to photograph and why she felt it was so important to preserve, their heritage within the Cherokee group. And so I was impressed by that. And also the fact that, it was such a difficult time to photograph with COVID coming into her community. And I think that that was really difficult for everyone too. So, but she was able to overcome all those challenges and to push through, and just in the last week or so, finished quite a number of these portrait sessions. And as you'll see, from the selection, the wide selection, which she's shown you, you can tell that, I was encouraging her to try to get as much variety as possible in the scale and in showing both portraiture as well as sort of more active photographs and still lifes of, some of the art pieces that they were making. And Madison, I think you can stop sharing your screen maybe. And I just wanted to ask you one question, which is having to do with these photographs, which you've made and which you've started this project on. Where would you most like to see them? I mean, who do you really want to see these images?
I mainly would want the youth to see them, because if you've noticed, I've really captured, I don't want to say elders, but that a lot of people capture the elders. And Ash, even, she did the adolescents. And I think that's something that is really vital now, especially because the youth is our future. And I would really like the youth to see this so they can say, hey, I can still live in modern times, but still practice these thousands of year old traditions that's been passed down. And yeah, I would love it if the rest of the world would see it, because we're more than something else. We just saw that the Native American community was referred to something else in the election. So just showing that we're living culture, we're living people, we're still, we're resilient, we're thriving. So mainly I would want the Native community to see these pictures, to get inspired more than anything, to just go out and practice who they are.
Yeah, I really had that sense from you. And Jennifer, I'll turn it over back to you. But the last thing that I'll say is just, I hope, Madison, that you will be very inspired in your own work after being so immersed in seeing these artists and their creativity and their dedication. And I really hope that that inspires your work as you move forward too. So.
Thank you so much, Madison and Elizabeth. I wish we could carry on with each of these projects. This is just a hint. You all can see more of these projects as the project goes nationally this month. At the end of our time today, we wanted to leave a bit of room for dialogue, and we do want to end at 5:30. So if anyone has a question, you're welcome to put that in the dialogue. If we don't get to it today, I will send it to the artists and the editors and the co-producers. So go ahead and engage as you like. And our last artist is going to be featuring a different kind of photography. It's a tintype photography. So this is work that has been commissioned for the 400 Years Project. And we're also bringing in work from Canada. So I'm really, really delighted to introduce Kaylee Spitzer. She is a photographer living in the traditional unceded lands of the Tsleil-Waututh Skokomish of Burnaby, British Columbia. Her work embraces stories of contemporary queer and trans bodies, creating representation that is self-determined. I thought it was so powerful to learn that in her 20s, Kaylee went back to live with the elders in her community, to learn traditional craft, traditional means of survival, and to celebrate elders. So I see a whole transgenerational theme in the 400 Years Project. Kaylee's work has been celebrated by National Geographic as well. And just this year, she's featured in Women, A Century of Change at National Geographic, as well as in Larger Than Memory, Contemporary Art Forms, Indigenous Native American Communities at the Heard Museum. So Kaylee, would you so kindly turn on your camera and your audio and introduce yourself for a moment, and then go ahead and share your images with us. Welcome, Kaylee.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. A special thanks to Jennifer, Sarah, and Brian, who I've been mostly dealing with. And we're in luck. I got a puppy last night and she has fallen asleep, so you can actually hear me. I'm also a nervous speaker, and it makes me feel better to start off with that. So I will pull up my screen here. So I'm phoning from the unceded lands of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations, and I'm an uninvited guest here, and I'm happy to be here. Always grateful for that. And I am calling from what you know as so-called Canada, but very resistant towards that word. So yeah, again, I'm just honored to be here, and I'm going to be speaking to my series, Exploration of Resistance and Resilience. And I also want to start off by saying I feel that resistance is a very powerful word. I have mixed feelings on resilience, even though I use it, because I feel that sometimes we don't have a choice as Indigenous people to be resilient. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword to me, but I still use it. As far as my background, I'm Cascadena on my father's side and Jewish on my mother's side. So I've been studying tintypes previously under the mentorship of Will Wilson, who I can't speak enough good words about. He's been an incredible teacher. Him and the photographer Cara Romero have both been very supportive and influential in my work. Most of my portraits are of my friends and family. I feel that the work that I do, really, I need trust. I need the people to trust me. I'm not saying that that can't happen in a matter of 15 minutes of meeting somebody, but for the vulnerable work that I'm making, I choose to photograph my friends and family, which is predominantly BIPOC, queer, trans, non-binary communities, as well as Two-Spirit. There's a lot of language to do with talking about these, so forgive me if I misspeak at all or leave something out. And the majority of my work stems from a place of not being heard or seen as BIPOC, Indigenous, femmes, non-binary folks. And there's so much violence committed against us, I think, partially because people, really racist people with cold hearts, don't see us as human. And so this work is first and foremost for the people who are in the images, and it's to try and heal the relationship of photography. So I work in a way that aligns with my ethics, and that means checking in every step of the way if I can continue to use someone's image. And if I can't, it's then retired. And it also is in the way in which I photograph. It's a slow process. Tintypes are, which is for more commonly known as wet plate collodion process. If you do it on aluminum, it's a tintype. If you do it on glass, it's ambrotype. And using that old technology affords for a slower pace. And that affords for collaboration, for a really deep connection in that space, and healing. You know, I need to be careful with the language I use. I want to make images with people, not take them. And it also looks like sitting still for quite a long time and maybe only having one photograph made in an hour or two. And that is where the beauty and the spirit is for me. And in the darkroom when I develop the image with the person in the photograph and seeing their reaction. Maybe they feel strong, or they feel like they look like their ancestors, or they think that they look different, which is also true because of the process. So yeah, that time in which we spend together making the image, and then in the darkroom is the place that really feeds my soul. And then it's kind of a byproduct that I get to share it with all of you graciously because of the people in the images. And I want to make sure that I'm really honoring them. I wouldn't be able to do the work I do without them. It's so important to me to keep these relationships strong and be respectful every step of the way. And I'm so grateful to people in the ways in which they're able to collaborate and be vulnerable with me. And then in turn, I feel like that was maybe a bit redundant, but yeah, so there's a lot of these images, there's a voice recording to go along with them. And so that's also about taking space in predominantly white institutional spaces where that can be a really complicated space for us as BIPOC queer folks. And so this is to show us how we are today and to show us how we want to be represented, seen, and heard. And these images are shown at a large scale. There's one behind me here, and then accompanied with headphones with voice recordings that aren't edited of the folks in the images and what they want to share with us. And so we're really urged to have this human connection, which I think that we're lacking in so many different aspects of the world, politics, community these days. You know, there's so many assumptions made, so much violence, and we just really need to come from a place of love. And that's what these images are for me. I was told to keep it under 10 minutes, but I'm nervous, so I think I maybe did it quick, maybe left some things out. Anybody want to chime in?
Kaylee, thank you so much. I think you have such an incredible culminating presentation because you speak to honoring communities and elders and lands. And if I may, Kaylee, I wanted to read a quote that really moved me from your own biography. And I think it just captures what the 400 Years Project is about so intensely. Says Kaylee would like to extend her gratitude to all who have collaborated with her. She recognizes the trust and vulnerability required to be photographed in such intimate ways. And I think that the way you put that on your own biography speaks so highly to the great honor of carrying someone's image over generations and across lands, certainly in territories which have been occupied. Kaylee, thank you. Thank you so much. And while I want to carry on with all of the artists, editors, and producers, I think since we're coming close to the end of our program, if I could just ask you, Kaylee, to stop your screen share and have everyone come back on board with cameras and mics for a moment. This is such an incredible collection of human beings and creators. I have such hope for the project. Since Kaylee's work was commissioned, we didn't have her working directly with an editor, yet Brian, you do portrait work, and I wanted to just ask you and any of the other artists, editors, if you would like to respond to what Kaylee just offered for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Kaylee's work absolutely so much, and I was so excited when she was on board to come on to the 400 Years Project. I like the process of the way she works with her subjects so much. It's a very intimate and close way of working with subjects. And I also like coming from I'm a medium format photographer and I like to work with film. I love how she comes from film or tintypes. And one of the things I like to think about with her is her walking up to Edward Curtis and pushing him away and being like, dude, I got this. You could go now. I'm gonna take the camera and I'm gonna do this for real now.
What a compliment, Brian.
You know what I mean, yeah.
No, I'm being quite serious. It's a beautiful compliment. And that's what we're working towards, to readdress how we've been inappropriately photographed. Photography can be an incredibly violent tool. And I am a longtime admirer of your work. And I think that your work really embodies us. It shows us in all of our differences and strengths. And by strengths, I also mean vulnerability. It doesn't necessarily mean buck up and be strong. Although I think as BIPOC Indigenous folks, we are inherently strong because we don't really have a choice.
Right.
And I love how you depict your culture and community in your images. It's so empowering, and it's true. Like, I feel like I'm looking at home when I look at your images.
That's the whole point. You know, we want to keep it real. We want to show what it's really like, and you know, where we come from. And I think we're all doing a really good job here. And that's why I think all the stories that we've worked with or have licensed for this project are so important to share. And yeah.
And as I see you all here together, it's so evident the many, many themes that have already emerged just in hearing you in this last episode together. I'm so excited to see where this goes. Madison, in your work, you really reminded me of the power of translation and that deep commitment to the artists seeing the work themselves, but then also moving art into the world. And I think all of you talked about representation and the responsibility in that. We have just a few minutes left. We do have some really interesting questions, and I wanted our audience to have a sense of connecting in some way. So I think I'll start with a question by Katie Elder, who's with ODU and also an alumni of the Women's Studies Department, longtime study abroad student. Katie is asking about representation, and she's saying, how do you translate the language between documentation within community and then feeling the sometimes burden of having to tell the stories and educate a wider population, given the huge gaps in our systemic history of racism and educational deficiencies?
I mean, I wouldn't consider it a burden at all. I mean, if no one will, who will? So, I mean, I'm glad to be here and take up that responsibility of showing the world what it actually is to be a living Native American, and, you know, or whatever tribal affiliation you are. You know, there's just so many stereotypical things that are just still going on that is resonating in people's minds and they don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Callie, your work is amazing. Ash, like, it's just so cool. Like you said to Bryan Adams, you're looking at home. Like, I completely feel that, because it's just some kind of thing, like it's an unspoken thing of what home is within Native American cultures. It's just something that is just so specific and special. So yeah, I think I'm totally glad with, you know, putting out the new age of what it is to be Indigenous. So yeah.
Hell yeah.
One more question about how we support Native American photographers who are emerging into the world. How do we be sure that they get the kind of access that we see here to amazing editors like Elizabeth and Sarah? How do we be sure that they have equipment? And what are there possibilities for emerging photographers beyond what we see today here?
I think that the past few years, the dialogue about storytelling, who is telling stories, the need for diversity has just been front and center part of the conversation in art and the photo community. And with that has come, you know, not just among photographers or editors, but among companies and et cetera, who are now, you know, there's more grants than ever. There's more, you know, and the pandemic, I think, actually has played into this in the fact that there's less, you know, sort of parachuting photographers into locations where, you know, they're looking for local photographers. So that gives more opportunity. I think the camera companies have been adding more diversity to sort of their various ambassadors and explorers and stuff like that. I've seen that lately. I think, Brian, you are now a Fuji ambassador. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Brian?
Brian? Brian, can you hear? I don't know if he can hear me, but I think Brian was, yeah, what? Sorry. I think that you were recently named a camera ambassador for one of the camera companies. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. There's just more and more conversation, and with that, more opportunities. But it's, you know, a bit of a, it's like early days on that. I mean, there's a long, long way to go for sure. And just, but keeping it top of mind, really making the efforts to offer more opportunities for photographers and more diversity is incredibly important. And I think everybody realizes that.
But I think it's true. I think editorially and with every jury I'm on and with every event that I help to program, there's always constantly the question of, do we have enough diversity? You know, do we have the right balance where we feel like we're representing enough, just, you know, different voices and different cultures. So I think it is really key. And, you know, thanks to people like Sarah and Brian who are creating these opportunities, and that they're actually being able to commission work and to license work. That's really tremendously important. And then finding audiences for that work.
Yes.
I just saw a question about if I was, because Sarah broke up a little bit there for on my end. If I was a Fuji ambassador. I'm not a Fuji ambassador. I still shoot all film, so
You should be.
So nobody wants to be an ambassador for me. You know? But I do know that Ash Adams, she was 2019, one of 2019's Sony Alpha females. And so she's rocking all the Sony, and I'd love to see more of those opportunities coming forward for our photographers like Ash. Yeah. And yeah, it's really cool because, you know, not only do they get some awesome equipment, but gives them the opportunity to go out and tell some really great stories.
Well, on that note, as we look to the future, I want to just pose with a question from one of our devoted and loyal English professors in literature. Manuela Morales says, I'm so looking forward to seeing the launch of the project. Will it be complete when you launch it, or is it supposed to be ongoing? And is Instagram the place to look for more content? Sarah, Brian?
Yeah, I can take that one. The 400 Years Project is ongoing. We are hoping to commission more artists and get as many people into the library as possible. Right now, I think we'll have about 45 photographers in the library at launch. So for now, until we launch, which we're looking at about mid to late November, Instagram is the best place. But then once the site is up, we're hoping to get some nice press on that. And then we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Bravo to all. And ODU will remain in connection. We'll keep you informed. Thank you to everyone. This has been such an inspirational. I think we will all flash back to the larger world right now and see what's happening in the political landscape. But I'm going to hold on to the hope in this collection of 7 amazing people. Thank you so much. And we wish you all the best. And to our students and community supporters, thank you for being a part of the 400 Years Project. More to come.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Sarah and Brian.
Thank you.
Bye, Kaylee. I'm out to just pose with a question from one of our devoted and loyal English professors in literature. Manuela Morales says, I'm so looking forward to seeing the launch of the project. Will it be complete when you launch it, or is it supposed to be ongoing? And is Instagram the place to look for more content? Sarah, Brian?
Yeah, I can take that one. The 400 Years Project is ongoing. We are hoping to commission more artists and get as many people into the library as possible. Right now, I think we'll have about 45 photographers in the library at launch. So for now, until we launch, which we're looking at about mid to late November, Instagram is the best place. But then once the site is up, we're hoping to get some nice press on that. And then we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Bravo to all. And ODU will remain in connection. We'll keep you informed. Thank you to everyone. This has been such an inspirational. I think we will all flash back to the larger world right now and see what's happening in the political landscape. But I'm going to hold on to the hope in this collection of 7 amazing people. Thank you so much. And we wish you all the best. And to our students and community supporters, thank you for being a part of the 400 Years Project. More to come.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Sarah and Brian.
Thank you.
Bye, Kaylee.